Hello and welcome back for day 355. Today we will be reading from the Apocryphal Book of 1 Maccabees, chapters 9 and 10, the Apocryphal Book of Ecclesiasticus, chapter 41, and Revelation, chapter 12. The Apocryphal Book of 1 Maccabees, chapter 9. Furthermore, when Demetrius heard that Nicanor and his host were slain in battle, he sent Bacchides and Alcimus into the land of Judea the second time, and with them the chief strength of his host, who went forth by the way that leadeth to Galgala, and pitched their tents before Masaloth, which is in Arbela. And after they had won it, they slew much people. After the first month of the 152nd year, they encamped before Jerusalem, from whence they removed and went to Barea, with 12,000 footmen and 2,000 horsemen. Now Judas had pitched his tents at Eliasa, and 3,000 chosen men with him, who seeing the multitude of the other army to be so great, were sore afraid, whereupon many conveyed themselves out of the host, insomuch as abode of them no more but 800 men. When Judas therefore saw that his host slipped away, and that the battle pressed upon him, he was sore troubled in the mind, and much distressed, for that he had no time to gather them together. Nevertheless unto them that remained, he said, Let us arise and go up against our enemies, if peradventure we may be able to fight with them. But they dehorted him, saying, We shall never be able. Let us now rather save our lives, and hereafter we will return with our brethren, and fight against them, for we are but few. Then Judas said, God forbid that I should do this thing, and flee away from them. If our time be come, let us die manfully for our brethren, and let us not stain our honor. With that the host of Bacchides removed out of their tents, and stood over against them, their horsemen being divided into two troops, and their slingers and archers going before the host, and they that marched in the forward were all mighty men. As for Bacchides, he was in the right wing. So the host drew near on the two parts, and sounded their trumpets. They also of Judas's side, even they sounded their trumpets also, so that the earth shook at the noise of the armies, and the battle continued from morning till night. Now when Judas perceived that Bacchides and the strength of his army were on the right side, he took with him all the hardy men who discomfited the right wing, and pursued them unto the mount Azotus. But when they of the left wing saw that they of the right wing were discomfited, they followed upon Judas and those that were with him hard at the heels from behind, whereupon there was a sore battle, insomuch as many were slain on both parts. Judas also was killed, and the remnant fled. Then Jonathan and Simon took Judas their brother, and buried him in the sepulchre of his fathers in Modin. Moreover they bewailed him, and all Israel made great lamentation for him, and mourned many days, saying, How is the valiant man fallen that delivered Israel? As for the other things concerning Judas and his wars, and the noble acts which he did, and his greatness, they are not written, for they were very many. Now after the death of Judas, the wicked began to put forth their heads in all the coasts of Israel, and there arose up all such as wrought iniquity. In those days also was there a very great famine, by reason whereof the country revolted, and went with them. Then Bacchides chose the wicked men, and made them lords of the country. And they made inquiry and search for Judas's friends, and brought them unto Bacchides, who took vengeance of them, and used them despitefully. So was there a great affliction in Israel, the like whereof was not since the time that a prophet was not seen among them. For this cause all Judas's friends came together, and said unto Jonathan, Since thy brother Judas died, we have no man like him to go forth against our enemies, and Bacchides, and against them of our nation, that are adversaries to us. Now therefore we have chosen thee this day to be our prince and captain in his stead, that thou mayest fight our battles. Upon this Jonathan took the governance upon him at that time, and rose up instead of his brother Judas. But when Bacchides gat knowledge thereof, he sought for to slay him. Then Jonathan and Simon his brother, and all that were with him, perceived that, fled into the wilderness of Theco, and pitched their tents by the water of the pool of Asphar, which when Bacchides understood, he came near to Jordan with all his host upon the Sabbath day. Now Jonathan had sent his brother John, a captain of the people, to pray his friends, the Nabathites, that they might leave with them their carriage, which was much. But the children of Yambri came out of Medaba, and took John, and all that he had, and went their way with it. After this came word to Jonathan and Simon his brother, that the children of Yambri made a great marriage, and were bringing the bride from Nadabatha with a great train, as being the daughter of one of the great princes of Canaan. Therefore they remembered John their brother, and went up, and hid themselves under the covert of the mountain, where they lifted up their eyes, and looked, and, behold, there was much ado and great carriage, and the bridegroom came forth, and his friends and brethren, to meet them with drums, and instruments of music, and many weapons. Then Jonathan and they that were with him rose up against them from the place where they lay in ambush, and made a slaughter of them in such sort, as many fell down dead, and the remnant fled into the mountain, and they took all their spoils. Thus was the marriage turned into mourning, and the noise of their melody into lamentation. So when they had avenged fully the blood of their brother, they turned again to the marsh of Jordan. Now when Bacchides heard hereof, he came on the Sabbath day unto the banks of Jordan with a great power. Then Jonathan said to his company, Let us go up now and fight for our lives, for it standeth not with us today, as in time past. For behold, the battle is before us and behind us, and the water of Jordan on this side and that side, the marsh likewise and wood. Neither is there place for us to turn aside. Wherefore cry ye now unto heaven, that ye may be delivered from the hand of your enemies. With that they joined battle, and Jonathan stretched forth his hand to smite Bacchides, but he turned back from him. Then Jonathan and they that were with him leapt into Jordan, and swam over unto the other bank. Howbeit the other passed not over Jordan unto them. So there were slain of Bacchides' side that day about 1,000 men. Afterward returned Bacchides to Jerusalem, and repaired the strong cities in Judea, the fort in Jericho, and Emmaus, and Bethhoron, and Bethel, and Themnatha, Pharathoni, and Tophon. These did he strengthen with high walls, with gates, and with bars. And in them he set a garrison, that they might work malice upon Israel. He fortified also the city Bethshura, and Gazera, and the tower, and put forces in them, and provision of victuals. Besides, he took the chief men's sons in the country for hostages, and put them into the tower at Jerusalem to be kept. Moreover, in the 153rd year, in the 2nd month, Alcimus commanded that the wall of the inner court of the sanctuary should be pulled down. He pulled down also the works of the prophets, and as he began to pull down, even at that time was Alcimus plagued, and his enterprises hindered, for his mouth was stopped, and he was taken with a palsy, so that he could no more speak anything, nor give order concerning his house. So Alcimus died at that time with great torment. Now when Bacchides saw that Alcimus was dead, he returned to the king, whereupon the land of Judea was in rest 2 years. Then all the ungodly men held a council, saying, Behold, Jonathan and his company are at ease, and dwell without care. Now therefore we will bring Bacchides hither, who shall take them all in one night. So they went, and consulted with him. Then removed he, and came with a great host, and sent letters privily to his adherents in Judea, and they should take Jonathan, and those that were with him. Howbeit they could not, because their counsel was known unto them. Wherefore they took of the men of the country that were authors of that mischief about 50 persons, and slew them. Afterward Jonathan, and Simon, and they that were with him, got them away to Bethbasi, which is in the wilderness, and they repaired the decays thereof, and made it strong. Which thing when Bacchides knew, he gathered together all his host, and sent word to them that were of Judea. Then went he and laid siege against Bethbasi, and they fought against it a long season, and made engines of war. But Jonathan left his brother Simon in the city, and went forth himself into the country, and with a certain number went he forth. And he smote Odonarchs and his brethren, and the children of Phasiron in their tent. And when he began to smite them, and came up with his forces, Simon and his company went out of the city, and burned up the engines of war, and fought against Bacchides, who was discomfited by them, and they afflicted him sore, for his counsel and travail was in vain. Wherefore he was very wroth at the wicked men that gave him counsel to come into the country, inasmuch as he slew many of them, and purposed to return into his own country. Whereof when Jonathan had knowledge, he sent ambassadors unto him, to the end he should make peace with him, and deliver them the prisoners, which thing he accepted, and did according to his demands, and sware unto him that he would never do him harm all the days of his life. When therefore he had restored unto him the prisoners that he had taken aforetime out of the land of Judea, he returned and went his way into his own land, neither came he any more into their borders. Thus the sword ceased from Israel, but Jonathan dwelt at Machmas, and began to govern the people, and he destroyed the ungodly men out of Israel. 1 Maccabees chapter 10. In the 160th year, Alexander, the son of Antiochus, surnamed Epiphanes, went up and took Ptolemais, for the people had received him, by means whereof he reigned there. Now when King Demetrius heard thereof, he gathered together an exceeding great host, and went forth against him to fight. Moreover Demetrius sent letters unto Jonathan with loving words, so as he magnified him. For said he, Let us first make peace with him, before he join with Alexander against us, else he will remember all the evils that we have done against him, and against his brethren, and his people. Wherefore he gave him authority to gather together an host, and to provide weapons, that he might aid him in battle. He commanded also that the hostages that were in the tower should be delivered him. Then came Jonathan to Jerusalem, and read the letters in the audience of all the people, and of them that were in the tower, who were sore afraid, when they heard that the king had given him authority to gather together an host. Whereupon they of the tower delivered their hostages unto Jonathan, and he delivered them unto their parents. This done, Jonathan settled himself in Jerusalem, and began to build and repair the city. And he commanded the workmen to build the walls and the Mount Sion, and about with square stones for fortification, and they did so. Then the strangers that were in the fortress which Bacchides had built fled away, insomuch as every man left his place and went into his own country. Only at Bethshura certain of those that had forsaken the law and the commandments remained still, for it was their place of refuge. Now when King Alexander had heard what promises Demetrius had sent unto Jonathan, when also it was told him of the battles and noble acts which he and his brethren had done, and of the pains that they had endured, he said, Shall we find such another man? Now therefore we will make him our friend and confederate. Upon this he wrote a letter, and sent it unto him, according to these words, saying, King Alexander to his brother Jonathan sendeth greeting. We have heard of thee, that thou art a man of great power, and meet to be our friend. Wherefore now this day we ordain thee to be the high priest of thy nation, and to be called the king's friend. And therewithal he sent him a purple robe and a crown of gold, and required thee to take our part, and keep friendship with us. So in the 7th month of the 160th year, at the feast of the tabernacles, Jonathan put on the holy robe, and gathered together forces, and provided much armor. Whereof when Demetrius heard, he was very sorry, and said, What have we done, that Alexander hath prevented us in making amity with the Jews to strengthen himself? I also will write unto him words of encouragement, and promise them dignities and gifts, that I may have their aid. He sent unto him therefore to this effect, King Demetrius unto the people of the Jews sendeth greeting, whereas ye have kept covenants with us, and continued in our friendship, not joining yourselves with our enemies. We have heard hereof, and are glad. Wherefore now continue ye still to be faithful unto us, and we will well recompense you for the things ye do in our behalf, and will grant you many immunities, and give you rewards. And now do I free you, and for your sake I release all the Jews from tributes, and from the customs of salt, and from crown taxes, and from that which appertaineth unto me to receive for the third part, or the seed. and the half of the fruit of the trees, I release it from this day forth, so that they shall not be taken of the land of Judea, nor of the 3 governments which are added thereunto, out of the country of Samaria and Galilee, from this day forth, forevermore. Let Jerusalem also be holy and free, with the borders thereof, both from tenths and tributes. And as for the tower which is at Jerusalem, I yield up authority over it, and give the high priest, that he may set in it such men as he shall choose to keep it. Moreover, I freely set at liberty every one of the Jews that were carried captives out of the land of Judea into any part of my kingdom, and I will that all my officers remit the tributes, even of their cattle. Furthermore, I will that all the feasts and Sabbaths, and new moons, and solemn days, and the 3 days before the feast, and the 3 days after the feast, shall be all of immunity and freedom for all the Jews in my realm. Also no man shall have authority to meddle with, or to molest any of them in any matter. I will further that there be enrolled among the king's forces about 30,000 men of the Jews, unto whom pay shall be given, as belongeth to all king's forces, and of them some shall be placed in the king's strongholds, of whom also some shall be set over the affairs of the kingdom, which are of trust, and I will that their overseers and governors be of themselves, and that they live after their own laws, even as the king hath commanded in the land of Judea. And concerning the 3 governments that are added to Judea from the country of Samaria, let them be joined with Judea, that they may be reckoned to be under one, nor bound to obey other authority than the high priests. As for Ptolemais, and the land pertaining thereto, I give it as a free gift to the sanctuary at Jerusalem, for the necessary expenses of the sanctuary. Moreover, I give every year 15,000 shekels of silver out of the king's accounts from the places appertaining, and all the overplus which the officers paid not in as in former time, from henceforth shall be given toward the works of the temple, and beside this, the 5,000 shekels of silver, which they took from the uses of the temple, out of the accounts year by year, even those things shall be released, because they appertain to the priests that minister, and whosoever they be that flee unto the temple at Jerusalem, or be within the liberties hereof, being indebted unto the king, or for any other matter, let them be at liberty, and all that they have in my realm. For the building also and repairing of the works of the sanctuary expenses shall be given of the king's accounts, yea, and for the building of the walls of Jerusalem, and the fortifying thereof round about, expenses shall be given out of the king's accounts, as also for the building of the walls in Judea. Now when Jonathan and the people heard these words, they gave no credit unto them, nor received them, because they remembered the great evil that he had done in Israel, for he had afflicted them very sore. But with Alexander they were well pleased, because he was the first that entreated of true peace with them, and they were confederate with him always. Then gathered King Alexander great forces, and camped over against Demetrius. And after the 2 kings had joined battle, Demetrius's host fled, but Alexander followed after him, and prevailed against them. And he continued the battle very sore, until the sun went down, and that day was Demetrius slain. Afterward Alexander sent ambassadors to Ptolemy, king of Egypt, with a message to this effect: Forasmuch as I am come again to my realm, and am set in the throne of my progenitors, and have gotten the dominion, and overthrown Demetrius, and recovered our country. For after I had joined battle with him, both he and his host was discomfited by us, so that we sit in the throne of his kingdom. Now therefore let us make a league of amity together, and give me now thy daughter to wife, and I will be thy son-in-law, and I will give both thee and her, as according to thy dignity. Then Ptolemy the king gave answer, saying, Happy be the day wherein thou didst return into the land of thy fathers, and sattest in the throne of their kingdom. And now will I do to thee, as thou hast written. Meet me therefore at Ptolemais, that we may see one another, for I will marry my daughter to thee, according to thy desire. So Ptolemy went out of Egypt with his daughter Cleopatra, and they came unto Ptolemais in the 162nd year. where King Alexander meeting him, he gave unto him his daughter Cleopatra, and celebrated her marriage at Ptolemais with great glory, as the manner of kings is. Now King Alexander had written unto Jonathan that he should come and meet him, who thereupon went honorably to Ptolemais, where he met the two kings, and gave them and their friends silver and gold, and many presents, and found favor in their sight. At that time certain pestilent fellows of Israel, men of a wicked life, assembled themselves against him, to accuse him, but the king would not hear them. Yea, more than that, the king commanded to take off his garments, and clothe him in purple, and they did so. And he made him sit by himself, and said unto his princes, Go with him into the midst of the city, and make proclamation, that no man complain against him of any matter, and that no man trouble him for any manner of cause. Now when his accusers saw that he was honored according to the proclamation, and clothed in purple, they fled all away. So the king honored him, and wrote him among his chief friends, and made him a duke, and partaker of his dominion. Afterward Jonathan returned to Jerusalem with peace and gladness. Furthermore, in the 165th year, came Demetrius son of Demetrius out of Crete, into the land of his fathers, whereof, when King Alexander heard tell, he was right sorry, and returned into Antioch. Then Demetrius made Apollonius, the governor of Seleucia, his general, who gathered together a great host, and camped in Jamnia, and sent unto Jonathan the high priest, saying, Thou alone liftest up thyself against us, and I am laughed to scorn for thy sake, and reproached. And why dost thou vaunt thy power against us in the mountains? Now therefore, if thou trustest in thine own strength, come down to us into the plain field, and there let us try the matter together, for with me is the power of the cities. Ask and learn who I am, and the rest that take our part, and they shall tell thee that thy foot is not able to flight in their own land. Wherefore now thou shalt not be able to abide the horsemen, and so great a power in the plain, where is neither stone nor flint, nor place to flee unto. So when Jonathan heard these words of Apollonius, he was moved in his mind, and choosing 10,000 men, he went out of Jerusalem, where Simon his brother met him, for to help him. And he pitched his tents against Joppa, but they of Joppa shut him out of the city, because Apollonius had a garrison there. Then Jonathan laid siege unto it, whereupon they of the city let him in for fear, and so Jonathan won Joppa. Wherefore when Apollonius heard, he took 3,000 horsemen, with a great host of footmen, and went to Azotus, as one that journeyed, and therewithal drew him forth into the plain, because he had a great number of horsemen, in whom he put his trust. Then Jonathan followed after him to Azotus, where the armies joined battle. Now Apollonius had left 1,000 horsemen in ambush, and Jonathan knew that there was an ambushment behind him, for they had compassed in his host, and cast darts at the people, from morning till evening. But the people stood still, as Jonathan had commanded them, and so the enemies' horses were tired. Then brought Simon forth his host, and set them against the footmen, for the horsemen were spent, who were discomfited by him, and fled. The horsemen also, being scattered in the field, fled to Azotus, and went into Beth-dagon, their idol's temple, for safety. But Jonathan set fire on Azotus, and the cities round about it, and took their spoils, and the temple of Dagon, with them that were fled into it, he burned with fire. Thus there were burned and slain with the sword well nigh 8,000 men. And from thence Jonathan removed his host, and camped against Askelon, where the men of the city came forth, and met him with great pomp. After this returned Jonathan and his host unto Jerusalem, having any spoils. Now when King Alexander heard these things, he honored Jonathan yet more, and sent him a buckle of gold, as the use is to be given to such as are of the king's blood. He gave him also Acheron, with the borders thereof, in possession. The Apocryphal Book of Ecclesiasticus, chapter 41. O death, how bitter is the remembrance of thee to a man that liveth at rest in his possessions, unto the man that hath nothing to vex him, and that hath prosperity in all things, yea, unto him that is yet able to receive meat. O death, acceptable is thy sentence unto the needy, and unto him whose strength faileth, that is now in the last age, and is vexed with all things, and to him that despaireth, and hath lost patience, fear not the sentence of death. Remember them that have been before thee, and that come after. For this is the sentence of the Lord over all flesh. And why art thou against the pleasure of the Most High? There is no inquisition in the grave, where thou have lived 10, or 100, or 1,000 years. The children of sinners are abominable children, and they that are conversant in the dwelling of the ungodly. The inheritance of sinners' children shall perish, and their posterity shall have a perpetual reproach. The children will complain of an ungodly father, because they shall be reproached for his sake. Woe be unto you, ungodly men, which have forsaken the law of the Most High God. For if ye increase, it shall be to your destruction. And if ye be born, ye shall be born to a curse. And if ye die, a curse shall be your portion. All that are of the earth shall turn to earth again, so the ungodly shall go from a curse to destruction. The mourning of men is about their bodies, but an ill name of sinners shall be blotted out. Have regard to thy name, for that shall continue with thee above 1,000 great treasures of gold. A good life hath but a few days, but a good name endureth forever. My children, keep discipline and peace, for wisdom that is hid, and a treasure that is not seen, what profit is in them both? A man that hideth his foolishness is better than a man that hideth his wisdom. Therefore be shamefaced according to my word, for it is not good to retain all shamefacedness, neither is it altogether approved in everything. Be ashamed of whoredom before father and mother, and of a lie before a prince and a mighty man, of an offense before a judge and ruler, of iniquity before a congregation and people, of unjust dealing before thy partner and friend, and of theft in regard of the place where thou sojournest, and in regard of the truth of God and his covenant, and to lean with thine elbow upon the meat, and of scorning to give and take, and of silence before them that salute thee, and to look upon an harlot, and to turn away thy face from thy kinsman, or to take away a portion or a gift, or to gaze upon another man's wife, or to be overbusy with his maid, and come not near her bed, or of upbraiding speeches before friends, and after thou hast given, upbraid not, or of iterating and speaking again that which thou hast heard, and of revealing of secrets, so shalt thou be truly shamefaced, and find favor before all men. Revelation chapter 12. And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. And she being with child cried, travailing in birth, and pained to be delivered. And there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads, and 10 horns, and 7 crowns upon his heads. And his tail drew the 1/3 part of the stars of heaven, and did cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman which was ready to be delivered, for to devour her child as soon as it was born. And she brought forth a man-child, who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron. And her child was caught up unto God, and to his throne. And the woman fled into the wilderness, where she hath a place prepared of God, that they should feed her there 1,260 days. And there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon. And the dragon fought, and his angels, and prevailed not, neither was their place found any more in heaven. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent, called the devil, and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. And I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, Now is come salvation, and strength, and the kingdom of our God, and the power of his Christ. For the accuser of our brethren is cast down, which accused them before our God day and night. And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb, and by the word of their testimony, and they loved not their lives unto the death. Therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time. And when the dragon saw that he was cast unto the earth, he persecuted the woman which brought forth the man-child. And to the woman were given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness, into her place, where she is nourished for a time, and times, and half a time, from the face of the serpent. And the serpent cast out of his mouth water as a flood after the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away of the flood. And the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened her mouth, and swallowed up the flood, which the dragon cast out of his mouth. And the dragon was wroth with the woman, and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of God, and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. That concludes our reading for the day. May the Lord bless everyone listening with strength, health, and courage, today and always.